Picture this. You are on your morning commute. The train or the bus is completely packed, standing room only, and you're just trying to get a head start on your day.
Right.
You pull out your phone to read through some work emails or review a personal document, or honestly, just scroll through something you'd rather keep to yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
But then you feel it. That unmistakable creeping sensation that the person standing right next to you is essentially reading over your shoulder.
Oh, the worst.
You catch their reflection in the window, or you just sense their eyes darting toward your screen. It is a universal, highly annoying modern experience. So what do?
You do the lean.
Right. You do the awkward lean. You tilt the screen away. You try to cup your hand around it.
It's a visceral reaction to an invasion of your digital personal space.
Mm-hmm.
And the frustrating part is that to mitigate it, you have to compromise your own posture.
Right.
You ruin your own viewing angle just to maintain a baseline level of privacy in a public setting.
And that extremely relatable frustration is exactly where we are starting today. Welcome to this deep dive. We are focusing on a device that claims to have completely solved this commuter's nightmare, along with a few other persistent hardware issues. But it's doing so in a very sneaky way.
Very sneaky.
We are looking at the brand new Samsung Galaxy S26 Ultra. I've been reading through this fascinating review titled Invisible Shield, and our mission for this deep dive is straightforward.
Yeah.
When a company asks you to hand over a massive chunk of money, $1,300 in this case, for a new device, we want to know, are you just paying for a recycled design with a fresh coat of paint? Or does this incredibly expensive piece of glass and metal actually hide legitimate game-changing technology under the hood? Okay, let's unpack this.
That is the essential question to ask, particularly in the current hardware market. When you look at premium devices today, the expectations from consumers are incredibly high, yet the year-over-year visual leaps have become, well, they've become negligible.
Yeah, totally.
The aesthetics of smartphones have largely plateaued.
Which perfectly frames the initial impression of the S26 Ultra, because if you were to just look at this phone sitting on a table, you would be completely forgiven for thinking it was last year's model.
Absolutely.
Reading through the review, that is the very first thing that jumps out. Carrying it around feels like carrying the exact same brick from last year, the S25.
Right, the identical chassis.
Exactly. It retains that identical, recognizable, boxy design. It still has the familiar S Pen slot tucked into the bottom corner. From a purely visual standpoint, I mean, it is practically a clone.
What's fascinating here is how our brains have been conditioned to equate visual redesigns with actual technological innovation.
That's a great point.
There are only so many ways an engineering team can design a glass and metal rectangle. But as consumers, we still carry this inherent, almost subconscious assumption that a lack of visual change means a lack of underlying innovation.
Like if it looks the same, it is the same.
Exactly. If the chassis doesn't look radically different, we assume the silicon and the display technology haven't evolved either. This sets a very specific psychological stage for the S26 Ultra. Samsung is taking a calculated risk by keeping the exterior identical.
Because it means the true upgrades are completely invisible.
Yes. The actual reasons this device exists are entirely hidden from plain sight.
And that hidden nature brings us right back to that crowded subway scenario. Because the reviewer had the exact same initial skepticism about the recycled design, but then they actually took it out on a crowded commute. They experienced what they perfectly coined the subway shoulder.
I love that term.
Right. That physical contortion you do to tilt the phone away from the prying eyes of the person standing 6 inches away from you.
The subway shoulder perfectly encapsulates the physical friction caused by our digital devices lacking proper privacy controls.
But instead of maintaining that awkward posture, the S26 Ultra offers a completely different solution. The review details a feature called Privacy Display.
This is where it gets good.
It is accessible with a single button press in the phone's Quick Settings menu. Just a quick swipe down, one tap. And the result is wild. To the user the person holding the phone and looking straight at the screen, everything looks completely fine.
Normal brightness, normal colors.
Exactly. The crisp text, it all remains totally normal. But to the guy sitting right next to you, the screen appears completely black. It isn't just dimmed, it isn't slightly blurred. It is pitch black, as if the device is completely powered off.
This represents a massive departure from how the industry has historically attempted to solve off-angle viewing privacy.
I want to spend some time on that distinction because it feels like the core aha moment of the device. Usually, if you want a privacy screen, you are forced into two pretty terrible compromises.
Mm-hmm.
You either buy one of those thick, polarized plastic screen protectors you have to perfectly align and stick onto the glass.
And you always get bubbles under them.
Always. Which inevitably makes your high-resolution display look dim and grainy anyway. Or you rely on a built-in software filter. The review explicitly calls out these traditional software privacy filters, noting that they usually make the screen look like absolute garbage.
They really do.
They wash out the colors, destroy the contrast ratios, and ultimately make it significantly harder for you to see your own phone.
Those traditional software filters are essentially just manipulating the image rendering to reduce contrast digitally.
Right.
They're hoping to wash out the image enough that an off-angle viewer can't read the text. It's a brute force digital patch. What Samsung has engineered here is entirely different. It is a hardware-level solution integrated directly into the display panel itself.
So it's not a software trick at all.
Not at all. Modern displays are constructed of millions of microscopic pixels, and each of those pixels is comprised of subpixels, the individual red, green, and blue light emitters. What the S26 Ultra is doing when you activate that privacy display toggle is physically disabling specific subpixels. The review notes it targets the wide subpixels.
I want to make sure we really grasp the mechanics of that. They are physically turning off specific parts of the light source inside the glass on demand.
Think about how a standard OLED panel is engineered. The goal is usually to maximize viewing angles so you can share a video with a group of friends, meaning the subpixels are designed to scatter light as widely as possible.
Sure.
By selectively disabling the specific wide-angle subpixels, the phone prevents the light from traveling laterally. It restricts the light emission to a highly directional, forward-facing beam.
Like a flashlight beam straight into your eyes.
Exactly. If your eyes are not positioned directly within that narrow forward beam, no light reaches you. It is literal physical light blocking taking place inside the hardware stack. It completely bypasses the need to degrade the primary image quality through a digital software filter.
Think about the practical application of that for a second. It transforms you into a secret agent on your commute, in a crowded coffee shop, or on a packed flight.
A very mundane secret agent.
Right, but you gain total uncompromised privacy in the tightest spaces imaginable without sacrificing the vibrant fidelity of the screen you paid for. Your emails, your financial dashboards, your private messages, they become completely invisible to the person sitting shoulder to shoulder with you. That is a tangible, daily friction point completely erased by hidden hardware.
It is a phenomenal example of applying complex display engineering to solve a very real, everyday annoyance. But specialized hardware, especially custom directional light-blocking display layers, inherently drives up the manufacturing cost.
Which forces us to address the $1,300 price tag.
Yeah, that's a big number.
It is, because as impressive as a hardware privacy toggle is, for that amount of money, you need more than a slick screen trick to justify the investment. You need serious underlying performance. We have to look at the engine.
This silicon.
Exactly. The specs detailed in the review are intense. The S26 Ultra is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 processor, and the reviewer didn't mince words. They described the architecture as a rocket ship.
The Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 is a significant piece of silicon. Moving beyond just the CPU and GPU cores, the detail that demands attention is the evolution of the NPU.
The neural processing unit. The review highlights that the NPU is almost 40% faster in this generation.
That is a massive generational leap.
Right. When you consider the sheer volume of on-device processing happening in the background of modern operating systems, computational photography, real-time language translation, predictive text, a 40% architectural jump is huge.
It provides the necessary headroom for the operating system to handle complex workloads locally without pinging a cloud server, which is crucial for both speed and data privacy.
Absolutely.
But looking at theoretical maximums on a spec sheet only tells half the story of a processor's true capability. The definitive metric for mobile silicon is how it behaves under sustained, heavy workloads over time.
And the reviewer absolutely tortured this hardware to find that out.
They really did.
They set up an extreme stress test designed to actively choke the processor and saturate the memory bandwidth. They initiated a 4K video rendering sequence.
Brutal.
Rendering high bitrate 4K video is notoriously one of the most punishing tasks you can demand from a mobile architecture. It pins the CPU cores at maximum utilization, but they didn't stop there. While that 4K render was grinding away in the background, They booted up a high-end mobile game and played it simultaneously.
Just zero mercy for that chip.
Zero. They were throwing simultaneous max load demands at the CPU, the GPU, and the memory controller.
For context on why that specific test is so punishing, you have to look at thermal dynamics. Under that kind of extreme dual load scenario, most mobile devices fail gracefully, but they do fail.
Yeah, they slow down.
The internal temperatures spike dramatically, the chassis becomes uncomfortably hot to the touch, the battery discharge rate plummets, and inevitably you hit thermal throttling.
And then everything gets choppy.
Right. The system is forced to intentionally and severely reduce its clock speeds to prevent the silicon from literally cooking itself. That results in dropped frames in the game and a halted video render.
But the outcome of this specific stress test was genuinely shocking. Despite that massive, simultaneous workload of 4K editing and heavy gaming, the S26 Ultra didn't even get warm. Not hot. It didn't even get warm.
If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
this represents a fundamental shift in how we need to evaluate and understand smartphone performance. For years, the industry has been obsessed with peak benchmark numbers.
Who has the highest score for 1 second?
Exactly. Measuring which chip can hit the highest theoretical speed for a fraction of a second before heat forces it to slow down. But true raw power in a modern context is about sustained performance. It is about the ability to handle seamless, heavy multitasking without hitting that thermal throttling ceiling. The fact that the S26 Ultra can endure that specific stress test without generating noticeable external heat indicates it is operating with a massive thermal overhead. For your daily typical use cases, the silicon isn't even breaking a sweat.
It is just comfortably cruising. But achieving that incredible heat management brings us to a highly debated design choice, and arguably the most surprising engineering pivot revealed in the review. To pull off this thermal efficiency, Samsung actually reverted the physical materials of the phone.
This is a huge talking point.
They switched the body of the S26 Ultra back to aluminum, completely ditching the titanium chassis they heavily marketed in previous premium models.
This is where understanding the underlying physics of the materials becomes critical. Because from a purely marketing perspective, titanium sounds significantly more premium.
Oh yeah, it's a powerful buzzword.
It carries connotations of aerospace engineering. It implies extreme durability, and it has been the defining trend for high-end flagship devices over the last couple of release cycles. Consumers have been trained to view titanium as the ultimate premium material.
When you are spending $1,300, there is an expectation that you are getting the most exotic materials available. So reverting to aluminum sounds like a cost-cutting measure on paper. Why is it actually the secret hero of this device's performance?
It comes down to thermal conductivity. Titanium is incredibly strong and has an excellent strength-to-weight ratio, but structurally, it is a relatively poor conductor of heat compared to aluminum.
Okay.
It essentially acts as a thermal insulator. When you have a massive processor like the Snapdragon 8 Elite Gen 5 tearing through a 4K video render and a high frame rate game simultaneously, that computational energy produces a massive amount of heat.
And it has nowhere to go.
Exactly. That thermal energy has to be displaced. If it is trapped inside a titanium frame, the internal ambient temperature rises rapidly, baking the components and triggering the thermal throttling we discussed.
So aluminum is better for cooling.
Yes. Aluminum possesses vastly superior thermal conductivity. It acts as a highly efficient giant heatsink for the entire internal logic board, rapidly pulling the thermal energy away from the processor and spreading it across the entire chassis so it can dissipate into the air.
So by switching back to aluminum, Samsung's engineering team is actively facilitating the performance of that Snapdragon processor. The reviewer noted that in practical use, the aluminum chassis allows the internal components to run significantly cooler while maintaining the same price point.
Yeah.
They summarized the decision perfectly as a choice of function over flash. Given the choice between a trendy metal that throttles your performance and a slightly less trendy metal that allows your device to chew through intensive tasks without even getting warm, I will take function over flash every single time.
It is a highly pragmatic, mature engineering decision. It demonstrates a clear priority on tangible, sustained performance and user experience over chasing material trends purely for the sake of a marketing spec sheet.
So, what does this all mean for you, the person trying to figure out if this device is worth the investment? It means that the true value of a piece of technology is sometimes entirely invisible to the naked eye. The Galaxy S26 Ultra might look exactly like the brick you saw last year.
Almost identical.
But underneath that incredibly familiar exterior, it is systematically solving real, everyday frustrations. It is giving you physical, hardware-level privacy on your packed commute so you don't have to contort yourself just to read an email. And it is delivering astonishing, cool-running computational power through highly calculated material choices and a monster processor.
That's a great way to put it.
Before we wrap up this analysis, I want to make sure you have all the resources you need to look into this yourself. If you want to dive deeper into the specific architectural specs we talked about, review the details of that 4K gaming stress test, or read the exact technical breakdown of how that wide subpixel privacy technology is physically structured within the glass, I have dropped a link to the original Invisible Shield review excerpts right there in the description of today's deep dive. Definitely check the description and click through if you want to explore the data for yourself.
To synthesize the core themes we have explored today, the Galaxy S26 Ultra serves as a masterclass in why we must look past external aesthetics when evaluating modern hardware. By seamlessly integrating physical directional light-blocking hardware inside the display stack, pairing it with a highly thermal-efficient aluminum heatsink, and utilizing the massive headroom of the vastly upgraded Snapdragon NPU, it actively resolves practical, real-world friction points.
Absolutely.
It addresses the anxiety of privacy invasions in public spaces and the frustration of performance throttling under load. It delivers a genuinely transformative user experience precisely because it focuses on invisible engineering rather than visual reinvention. This raises an important question.
Oh, okay.
If hardware like this physical privacy display completely blocks out the people around us from seeing our digital lives, are we creating the ultimate secure private experience for ourselves? Or are we just pushing ourselves further into completely isolated visual silos when we are out in public? As our screens become entirely invisible to everyone but us, do we lose a subtle layer of shared social experience in our physical environments?
That is a brilliant point to end on. A little philosophical takeaway about how our technology isolates us to chew on the next time you're sitting on the subway. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We always appreciate you taking the time to unpack these complex topics with us. Keep questioning the tech you carry every day. Keep looking beneath the surface, and we will catch you on the next one.